Let's go to Mike Cernovich now, one of the great commentators on the America First movement and one of the early guys involved in this. Cernovich, you've been all over this for the last couple of days. Give us your thoughts.
Well, I was thinking a lot, and I sent you that image that I think is so important, and it shows the cultural arrogance and unsophistication of the regime. I say that we don't have a government, we have a regime, a hostile government. I just watched Casablanca, and I feel very much like we're the ones singing the national anthem of the United States, and the regime is singing the national anthem of Adolf Hitler and Stalin and Mao and Pol Pot. And that image that I sent you struck me because I'd heard it before, which is you have the time, or you have the watches, but we have the time. And I've been thinking how profound it is that the Taliban, which is a terrorist, and the media matters will try to chop this up, and I never let them do that. They are on an infinite timeline. Did anyone at the Pentagon? No, because they're godless. No one at the Pentagon believes in God. They don't have religion. They don't have spirituality. Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis, the warrior monk. Has he read a book on philosophy, psychology, religion? How do you defeat an enemy that isn't on a timeline of days or weeks or years or decades? They believe in jihad that's an infinite timeline. There was a video that went around where they said that they'll bring it over to America, but it doesn't have to be today or next year, that they'll wage jihad until the infinite. And people, when they hear that, they get either rattled or nervous or they're ignorant, rather than just thinking for a moment that you cannot defeat an enemy, or how do you defeat an enemy that isn't on your timeline? They're on the timeline of infinity. That was even covered a little bit in American Dharma before Earl Morris ruined that film. It was covered in The War for Eternity, which the media hated because it was actually a good book. I read parts of that 3 or 4 times. I thought, holy crap. Finally, someone is trying to wrestle with spirituality and with timelines, and realizing that these guys aren't on our timeline. They're not on the timeline of the next election, the next quarterly earnings report. They're on the timeline of jihad, of infinity. And there's no way that a godless, materialistic, degenerate society like ours can ever win, because everyone in America is just chasing that next dose of dopamine, that next dose of hedonic pleasure. So today, as sad as it is, and as much as it shows that the regime is a failure, I think it's a profound moment of reflection, and to think about spirituality and our own connections with God and our own connections with the divine, and asking, are we just chasing pleasure, transient pleasure, or are we living on a longer timeline, the timeline of decades, the timelines of centuries, the timelines of infinity? Because that's what it's going to take for good to prevail over evil.
Mike, how do people follow you? How do people get to you and more of your writings, more of your films?
They can watch Hoax Movie. They got to look for me. I've made myself harder to find. As you know, it's hard to get me to do stuff because I feel like the era we're entering in is an era for people who have to really seek actively and assertively and get on a different timeline. So I think that's the lesson for today, is one of spirituality, one of reconnecting with our own faith, and asking if the people who we consider evil are on a timeline of infinity with their God, what timeline are we living under?
Mike Cernovich, thank you very much. Honored to have you on here. Jack Posobiec, Stephen K. Bannon, we're on a special. I want to thank the people at Real America's Voice, John Frederick's Radio Network, and, of course, GTV and G News to put it up in Mandarin.